don't personally like that, the niceness.
You don't?
It's not-
Okay.
I don't like. I like when people are nice to me, but this is like overly nice and way too enthusiastic, even when both of us have no clue what we're doing. And I ask it questions and it gives me false answers. And I say, okay, it's not true. That's you think you're helping me, but you're not. And he's okay, I'm sorry, bro, but we got this. No, we don't.
Okay, so have you argued with ChatGPT? Have you
all the
gotten
time,
mad?
all the time.
Okay. So tell me about. This is actually really like interesting to me. So what happens when you argue with it? Does it defend itself or does it get mad back?
Yeah, I'm Lazar Nikolov. I'm originally from North Macedonia, but I am currently living in Toronto in Canada. I'm a software engineer, content creator. I like communities. I like learning new things. I like immediately teaching those new things to my community. So yeah, that's why I have Discord and YouTube, just outlets that I can use to output stuff that I am personally passionate about, but then other people find valuable. By day, I work at Sentry as a DevX engineer, the senior developer experience engineer. But yeah, I've been fiddling with computers professionally since 2015. Yeah, so almost closing in on 10 years now. Yeah.
That's awesome. So for the most part, it seems, I think this is what I was going to ask you first. You do a lot. So how do you manage that? And for a lot of people who come to check out this video, their first thing they're probably going to wonder is, why are you doing so much? And does that translate into what it takes today to be a successful developer?
Yeah, I hope not, but I can answer that. I'm gonna answer this question. I'm not sure if you like the answer, but this is the truth. Whatever I'm doing outside of 9 to 5 it's not my job, and I intend to keep that. That means I am doing everything with the, frequency and intensity as long as I'm comfortable with, and I'm having fun. So I'm not forcing myself to do more just to keep up with everything that's going on, or like to cater to the algorithm. If you mentioned you're starting YouTube or you're not long in the game, you've seen that, right? Like in order to grow your channel, you have to consistently, and I would say constantly upload videos. I'm not actually doing that. If you see my channel right now, it's been like 3 or 4 months since I have uploaded a video. That's perfectly fine, right? Because if I am chasing something, it's not gonna be fun and it'll turn into a second job, and I already have one.
Right.
And I'm keeping it fun.
That's like a good segue in some ways, actually, for the first question that I think I wanted to reach out and find out about. I get this question a lot, especially with the community, is just really this day and age, it's tough to get a job. It's tough to keep a job. So really, in your opinion, and both of us can answer on this actually, but I wanted to hear from you first. What should somebody focus on truly if they're getting into tech now? You know, if you were to tell your younger self, a younger developer starting out, you see all this different stuff, all this flashy stuff, you've got to have a job and you've got to have a cool setup, you have a Discord channel, you have to have technology, you have to have YouTube. But what is the core thing that people want now in this day and age, like to get in? What do you think is the number one skill?
Yeah, the way that I see it is there are two ways or two parts to this answer. First is like having a good technical background. And with AI nowadays, the lower bar has risen by a lot. And it's harder to find a job as a junior now than, that has ever been. It's harder. And that means that if I'm giving myself like an advice, my younger self an advice is maybe don't focus too much into the tiniest, smallest details. And this might be a bad advice, I don't know. I'm not actively hiring software engineers nowadays. I used to, but not now in my current position. But don't get hold up in like syntax. Don't get hold up in, if you're getting into React, if you're a front end or even like full stack, you're probably doing React. And if you're doing React, don't get into what every hook means or what every hook in little API and stuff like that does. It's fine to know it, but you don't need to know it by heart. What I would give myself an advice is like focus on the bigger picture and focus on evergreen topics, client-server communication. That happened before React and it's going to continue living after React as well. Stuff like that, design patterns, software architecture. These are the things that, at least right now, AI can't really do well. So since the bar has risen, the lower bar has risen, as a junior, if you can demonstrate that you're better than the AI, you have a chance. And in order to do that, you gotta attack it by design patterns, software architecture, testing, having proper boundaries in your code base, not a single file with backend, frontend, server functions, and SQL queries that demonstrate hygiene, code hygiene, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I would say. That is the first part. And the second part is, of course, marketability, right? As years go by, more and more people want to get into this role, into this industry. The thing that's going to set you apart is if you have something that it worked for me, right? YouTube, Discord, live streaming. If you have a Twitch, you don't even need to be on YouTube. Twitch is fine as well. Those kind of things. If you can demonstrate publicly your skills and your abilities and have something to show for it, that's how you get a real shot at getting a job. It's hard. You gotta do a lot more than Vijay and I probably did, but that's the harsh truth. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I think you're giving a lot of good advice. And I think when I think a lot about this myself too, I've been thinking about this for a week now. It's revisiting like the way things used to be. And when I started out, I was actually like learning it self-taught. And so the way I would learn would be just work with small businesses because I was pretty good at talking to friends and community people. And so a lot of times like the subject of, can you help me with my website come up? And so that was like the gateway for me. And looking back to today too, I still feel like that's actually the easiest gateway to be. Like if you're starting out, if you're junior, even if you went to college and you got a full degree in software engineering, if the job market's really difficult, just start talking to people, just start talking to your friends and your family members and just people in your community, because ultimately the small businesses have a lot of needs. And I think they obviously get like overlooked a lot. And from there, if you start doing well with making your friend a website or making somebody a website or working at it as maybe like a part-time thing for someone on their website and you do it well and you show off that software engineering side, I think that's going to platform you to being more confident and being able to show, okay, I have done more than just like hobby projects. I've done more than just tutorials. I have like real life work behind this. Like for me, I always feel like the gateway advice I can give is start with that first. I know it's not cool,
glamorous,
luxurious, the YouTubers make it, but it works. And ultimately, when you get your first big paycheck too, sometimes freelancing can give you a lot of money. When you get that big paycheck, like the old me, I'm just throwing this out there, but like I'm curious to keep going with this conversation, but the old me might spend it. The old me might be like, all right, let me go get some Pokemon cards today.
Why not?
Let me get some video games. But nowadays, I feel if you keep the money and you like, let's say you want to work at a FANG company, right? Or let's say that's like a longer term goal. I would actually say invest in that company you like. Buy the stock or buy like something that they're doing and just keep it with you. So for an example, I would say Apple. I liked Apple like way from the beginning. So invest in that. And the reason I'm just throwing that out there right now, because you might be like, why are you talking about investing? This is about code. But it actually helps because what you can do is you start to realize, oh, I have this money set aside for learning and for building. And like ultimately to drive a point home, if you ever feel like you need to take a break and study some more to prep for a test because you might have a shot at a FANG company, you have all this money that you've stacked and it's growing and it's helping you fulfill your dreams. I would say those are some advice pieces I could give you.
Interesting. Yeah, we have do we have different backgrounds? Like growing up in North Macedonia, investing in stock and stuff like that wasn't really a thing. But yeah, that's interesting.
So actually, now that I've said that too, like how would, if you don't have stocks, if you don't have those things, because a lot of people probably from different countries will watch this too. So what would you say are a good piece of advice, like to just build your career, especially at the beginning? Because the reason, again, like I say this is that in the beginning, it's easy to lose your job. It's easy to get fired. It's easy to have like months where there's no income. So how do you like survive? I feel like that's so crucial.
Yeah, like how do you build, like how do you start your career, or how do you make sure that you're...
Because this is the advice portion, right? We're just like rolling with like tips we'd give ourselves if we were starting over again. And then we'll eventually get back to the heroism and, oh, like this is where we're at now, you know?
Let's say, honestly, that's how I even started. So I was first and second year at university. I already had an Android application under my belt. It was really cool. 10,000 downloads in 2013. That's
Amazing.
A lot.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's a lot. How many people even had smartphones in 2013? If you compare like the worldwide, not a lot. At least not like today. Yeah, I already had that. I built that application in high school because I wanted to cheat on the exams, on the finals, but I didn't.
Now you've got to tell me about this app. So what exactly is this app? Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was called Pocket Formulas. It was an application that displayed the math formulas like trigonometry, geometry, algebra, and etc. So I had these formulas, and these are for the high school finals. And we were allowed to use our smartphones. This is 2012, 2013. We were allowed to use our smartphones because you either have a calculator, like a hardware calculator, actual, or we could have used our phones. And people weren't super familiarized with like smartphones and applications, and I guess they just let us use our smartphones. And I was like, now is the chance to build an application that is going to use LaTeX to render all of the formulas that I need, and I'm just going to switch between the calculator app and the one that I make. And guess what? I didn't end up finishing the app, so I didn't use it. I had to study just like everybody else. So I passed. I ended up continuing working on the application because it was like I was really into it. That was powerful to me. The ability to build an application and publish it, and random people in this world can have it in their pockets, hence Pocket Formulas, right? I just continued working on it. And then when I got to uni, my roommate and we started getting some projects here and there, like freelancing. We were building some mobile applications with Cordova. I'm not sure if you're on the younger side, you might not know what Cordova is. But we were building mobile apps with Cordova, which was later PhoneGap.
Yes,
I believe. Yeah. So that's what we were doing. Then I went on and got an internship in December 2013. I remember there was a local software agency. I did Android, worked on an app for some time, and that's basically how I started as well. Started freelancing, got a few projects to show. That's how I got the projects plus my application, the one that I had on the Android Play Store, got me an internship, and then using that internship, I got hired later as a mobile app developer.
Okay, that's a great story, I think, in itself too, right? I think like a lot of people like think about, okay, how do I get a job? There's no job, it's really hard. But you took the entrepreneurial route, right? And you said, I'm gonna just make something that solves a pain in the industry. This pain is for me, and you worked on it. Then you just jumped in, you just started getting really familiar with the technology, like you said, Cordova and PhoneGap. And I think at the time, right, there were people trying to learn that, and that was a very valuable thing. So you saw that, you were like, okay, I'm gonna go just jump in and learn this. And That's actually really great. I took the web development route. HTML, CSS, this stuff like was very confusing for a lot of small businesses. And the jQuery stuff was very confusing for a lot of businesses, especially as it would get like very large and spaghetti-like. And so that's like where I started going, okay, maybe I'll really learn JavaScript and really get good with the intricacies. And there were a lot of good books that were coming out. Again, like I was saying, that when I started, I was doing stuff like reading Eloquent JavaScript and books by John Reisig. And I learned about how he made jQuery, not just how to use the API. So I started building confidence, and then I would try to talk to other people in the industry about it. And I think, again, for me, when I was first starting out, and I've said this before in other videos, but when you first start out, there's a lot of people who say, you're not a programmer, especially if you say you're self-taught. You'll hear that advice so much. And I think like our industry is very mean to like people, especially starting out, push you away. So I like talking to people. And so what I would do is I would just meet up with people and I would say, who wants to meet on meetup.com? And I would say, let's talk about JavaScript. And so from there, that was how I built my own knowledge. I started sharing what I knew. And if I was wrong, correct me, help me out.
Let's learn together. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's how I built myself through the ropes. So both of us, like we got in the trenches and we just started coding.
That's it. There's no way. Like there's no other way.
Yeah. And actually to hammer the point home too, right? Like yesterday, I think I was watching like a YouTube video anyway. I'm sure you're familiar with the Prime again. I've seen some of his videos. So there was like this really long talk, I think it was like a 5-hour long talk. And he was going on and on about like different things. But one thing that kind of resonated with me especially was that in the early days for him, before he went on to work at Netflix and all that stuff, he would just sit with code that no one else knew and just like really like work at it. Even he didn't know, right? He says, oh, I don't know what this is. But he is very much deep dive. Let me jump in. Let me just really spend hours with it, like 24 hours, 36 hours, which is insane. But like, I remember doing like my own little like mini hackathons back then. Any thoughts to share on that? What do you think?
Yeah, totally. It's like how they teach you to swim. They just throw you at the water and you figure it out. That's exactly what you like. The best way to do it is just throw yourself in the fire and try to survive. That's it. Try to build some stuff. Try to build projects for yourself, like I did back in high school. But that's pretty much it. And the good thing that nowadays is you got AI, you got all these different technologies that you don't even need to spend a lot of time doing something. Trust me, Vijay and I know. Even building the most basic thing took hours back in the day. Our nerves are made of steel because of that. Nowadays, it's super convenient, and everything there's an app and library for everything. You just need to have a problem to solve, a smaller problem to solve, and just go ahead and try to solve it. That's all.
Okay, so that's actually a really good segment. And I think I want you to talk through that pain of what it was back then and then contrast that a little bit with how it is now. If you want to share your screen too, because I know this and I know you probably know this, but I think AI is like very new to a lot of people still. But if you're somebody working with AI on the job, you probably know about like how good it is now compared to what it used to be like. So maybe just, share your own experience first, and then I will.
Yeah. So let's talk about AI. Now, there's a right way to use it and there's a wrong way to use it. If you've been around Twitter, you're most likely know the term vibe coding.
Yeah.
Vibe coding, and just basically...
So what is vibe coding, by the way? Just for people who don't know, what does that mean?
Well, let's try to define it, because I haven't seen a definition. How I understand what vibe coding is, just let AI write the code for you and try it out. If it works, like manually, if it works, go ahead and move on to the next one. That's not how you're supposed to do it, okay?
Okay, so that's the wrong way.
That's the wrong way.
Okay,
Exactly. Yeah, don't let it write the code for you, because that's how you make yourself useless. You can't build a career even like if at the beginning you're literally useless. No. So how in my usage, what I've seen that doesn't work. And that was even, there was one instance even recently. So at work, I work in the developer experience team. So I was tasked to build several demos, and I picked five demos where I'm going to demonstrate how to properly use tracing as a debugging technique and all of the different ways where tracing can help you. So there's like slow external API, like external API slowdowns, slow database queries, microservices and debugging microservices. So there were all of these demos, and I keep them on GitHub. If you want, we can drop a link so people can see. And I was like, 5 demos. I need them really soon and really need to get these done because I need to record videos on them. And I'm still recording those videos. I got 3 out of the 5 already out the door.
Okay.
Because that's how my work works. Like, build a demo and then I record a video or do a workshop. I decided to vibe code it. And it was not a good experience. I think I wasted more time trying to make Cursor output the thing that I wanted to output than if I was just to sit down and code everything by hand.
Okay, you said Cursor. So so that, again, for the uninitiated, there's a lot of different tools out there. There's ChatGPT, there is Gemini, which is pretty good too. ChatGPT is the most famous because of it's pretty much the thing that kickstarted the whole AI. That was the first time we actually got a
pioneers
AI. Then Gemini came out, and then that was Google's answer to ChatGPT. But now we have a lot of different other AIs too, like you said, Claude, and there's
Windsurf.
Yeah. So actually, before we deep dive into all that, like, what are the ones that are popular now, like for the people watching, and even for me?
I feel like ChatGPT is important, but it's like a general. It's used by the general population. ChatGPT is ChatGPT. It's not a developer tool. Cursor is a fork of VS Code, but it implements an LLM. On top of it, it indexes your code, and every time you talk to it, it sends relevant files, basically, along with your message. So it's basically ragging. It's RAG. And that's how, because it's built into your IDE, it's easy to generate the code, paste it in your file, and let you review it, accept it, or decline it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super easy to write code when it's embedded into your IDE.
I would actually like, some of our claim and fame is that we've done meetups where we've demoed this. I would love to have you in a different session, maybe even just demo this if you're up for it, or work with me if you want. Together we could do it as like a code along. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Just because I think like we haven't really covered what AI tools are out there. We know like people are asking about it, so it would be great to spend one time just going through Cursor, maybe like using a different AI tool. And I would say the same. That's probably a good space to be in right now.
Okay. AI working in NeoVim as well. I don't use it, but I got it working, so maybe that's going to be cool to demonstrate.
Okay, yeah. So when I saw some of your videos this week too, like I saw the video about NeoVim and I saw what you were doing there. And so I was like, oh, this is really great. You're using Vim, so again, like for the uninitiated, Vim is, if you don't know Vim, I would say go and learn it because it is pretty useful. It's a pretty good editor that you can use in the console. You don't have to leave the console. I know a lot of people use VS Code. That's the industry standard to write coding projects. But if you use Vim, it makes it simpler to just be in the console and work, especially if you're working remotely or working with a lot of different servers. You can SSH. SSH basically just means you can like dial into another server and start working on that code side too. With that said, actually, why do you like Vim and NeoVim? What is the appeal for you? Why don't you use standard tools?
Yeah, I did use standard tools. Why I like Vim. And I also use Vim in VS Code and Cursor, or at least Vim motions and Vim bindings. That's the reason, the Vim motions. So in Vim, there's like multiple modes. By default, when you open VS Code, it's insert mode. That means you're inserting code. But if you hit escape, you're in normal mode, and that means you can get to run commands and perform motions. So the idea with Vim is that you're not going to use your mouse to edit your code. And there are multiple motions, or I'm going to say like keyboard shortcuts, that really make it easy for you to jump around the code, select a bunch of stuff, replace, surround, whatever you're doing with a mouse, you're just gonna do it with the keyboard, right? So first, it's more ergonomical, right? Your hands are properly set up if they are, and you're not moving your right hand, right? So some will say it's faster. I think it's faster once you learn it, because then it becomes your normal, it becomes your baseline. And now if I am in, I don't know, if I'm checking out something on a colleague's computer and they don't have Vim, of course I'm slower because I prefer Vim. I have used Vim since, I don't know, several years now. I'm so used to it. I'm slower on non-Vim.
Fair enough. Yeah, actually, I think you're probably like the fifth person that I've met who is like a pro Vim user.
Yeah, full-time Vim.
Yeah, it's good to know. Again, Vim is definitely an older editor, but it's very powerful. And I think if you play around with it a lot, you actually become a little bit more of an expert, especially in the networking and like more of the whole control of the computer, right? So I think that's always super valuable. And for a younger person out there, I would say, make sure you're really familiar with the command line. Make sure you're familiar with all the little command line shell scripts and stuff like that, because that'll set you apart again.
Unix commands, definitely.
Yeah.
You want to be comfortable navigating your computer through a terminal, because most of the times you need to do that, right? Even if you want to create a new Next.js project, you still need to cd into wherever and do npm something. Can't not use the terminal.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? 100% agree now, because thinking about it more too, right? That is actually what separated me from a lot of people that I knew that were learning to code. A lot of people would just code in fact, I had a boss like way back who would just use, I think, Adobe's, I forget what it was called. Do you know what it was called? It was an Adobe web editor, Dreamweaver. I think that was what it was
Dreamweaver.
called. So he would just write in Dreamweaver. And I think like he was just very turned off by the console. He was just like, I don't want to use the console ever. I just want to use this one tool. And I don't care about CDing into projects. I just want this to manage all that for me. That was his take on the console. But I was like, but you can do things so much faster if you use the console. And it became like a pain point for him to even build websites the way we really wanted to at some point. Because we were like back in the day, it used to be PHP and WordPress and then Drupal and all this stuff. But you eventually needed to know a lot of command line stuff to actually get Drupal. I think the change was from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. So Drupal 8 went hardcore into like object-oriented programming, and you had to be really comfortable with the console. So I already was, and so that was what made me take ownership over a lot of those projects. And then from there, I was like the true value add, because I knew a lot of my console stuff by that time. So going back to AI actually, because we talked about it, the old way used to be you would go on StackOverflow and there would be a lot of egos there, like we talked about, and you would ask a question and it'd be like, nope, automatically rejected. Like, this question's already been asked 20 other times and here's a reference.
Frustrating.
Oh yeah. It was awful. Do you have any experience with that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a lot of times. Look, it's a forum. Forums are they're made for people to congregate, to talk, and to deal with each other. So you're dealing with people, what can I say? That's it. So mods can be pretty aggressive. I've tried to search for problems that I've had. I didn't find questions. I decided to ask. Turns out there is a question. I don't know how they found it, but cool. Okay, moving on. I've also had situations where, my question was declined because it was already asked, but then it wasn't really the question. A person had an issue in this part or this library or dependency I had in a different one. So same error, but coming from a different direction. So the fix wasn't the one that was accepted. Yeah, it's much better with AI nowadays because you get to have a personalized answer. And ChatGPT is not just going to slap your hand because you
You know
asked it a dumb question.
Yeah, that's actually true. So with ChatGPT, one of the things that like I read like Reddit and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I will look at what's going on in AI, but there's some feedback that ChatGPT is too friendly and it tries
yeah.
to be like too bro-ish with you or talk to you like in a bro way or something like that. I actually
Why
like
is that?
Yeah, I like it because okay, the way I see it is the kinder you are to me, the more you're gonna win me over as a friend. Like a secret trick here. So like when I used to use Stack Overflow or when I would talk to developers, this is just something I've observed. And again, like 10 years to 12 years in this industry. I don't know why it is, but like a lot of people who are really smart, especially engineers, especially developers, software engineers, they tend to be, okay, very smart in one specific area. But then like their interpersonal skills or just talking to them is like such a pain. Like having them explain something to you is like a huge chore for them. And so like sometimes like you'll get like a very defensive answer. You'll get like an answer where it's like rough or mean. Oh yeah, just Google it. Well, this is like something you could have done like in 20 seconds, or I could have done in 20 seconds for you, bro. Or like you're totally doing wrong. Your code is trash. Like ChatGPT doesn't do that to you. It never says that your code is trash or whatever you're asking is trash. And by the way, Gemini, I'm going to plug for Gemini a little bit because I've been using that a lot too. Both are really helpful in breaking down like everything that is possibly going on with that piece of code and giving you like examples that you can work through. Now, the examples aren't always completely accurate.
Yeah.
Some of the answers are old. And this goes back to what you were saying in Stack Overflow, right? Like it's, because behind the scenes you can see, okay, in Stack Overflow, like I would go in the normal way, the old way, like 2 years ago or something like that. It might be Google search this error, and then you would land on an error page for Stack Overflow with that specific error from like 2009, and it's 2025, and it's wait a minute, none of these dependencies exist anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to tell ChatGPT now, which is also doing a crawl, to give you more like recent information. So it'll do a better job of doing that. And then if you say that, oh, I'm using Node version 20 or something like that, I don't have access to this package anymore, it'll give you another answer. And even if it's wrong, it gives you a clue now, like by being so nice. Oh, this is probably how I would solve this thing in this time.
Yeah, totally. I don't personally like that, the niceness.
You don't?
It's
okay.
I don't like, I like when people are nice to me, but this is like overly nice. Way too enthusiastic, even when both of us have no clue what we're doing. And I ask it questions and it gives me false answers. And I say, okay, it's not true. That's you think you're helping me, but you're not. And he's, okay, I'm sorry, bro, but we got this. No, we don't.
Okay, so have you argued with ChatGPT? Have you
all the time? Okay, so tell me about, this is actually really like interesting to me. So what happens when you argue with it? Does it defend itself or does it get mad back? No, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. I've heard that way too many times.
Okay, I haven't pushed ChatGPT that far, but I've seen like some people try to, and it's always interesting to me.
Yeah,
actually, that's a good one. That's something to experiment around with, I would say. And if you're a viewer kind of also tuning in, I would love to just know, have you ever pushed one of these AI tools to the brink? If you know of anything, just share it here on the channel. Share it to both of us, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so I think let's move away from like the younger selves of ours and the self-taught to the more, okay, let's go into what exactly is important these days. First of all, I know you said you work at Sentry, and I always want to be careful when I talk to people about their work because I know there are things you can't really say and you shouldn't say. And so I'm going to preempt this with that statement. We don't want to get anybody in trouble, but essentially, if you were to talk about what your focus is now in a general way, what would you say? Your role at Sentry, what do you do?
Yeah. There's no secrets, honestly.
Okay.
If you look at the company, we are source available. That means in some way open source, but technically not open source. I'm not gonna get into that. That means just the source is available on GitHub. There are no There are much less secrets in Sentry than in a different type of company. But yeah, even more so in my case, because everything I do is public. So I am focused on developer experience. That means education. That means teaching people how to use Sentry. And the good thing is that it's not just about Sentry. It's just I am getting paid to teach people how to be better engineers. Even to, if I teach you how to be a better engineer, you're not gonna need Sentry. But I am getting paid by Sentry to make it obsolete in a way, but I'm never going to, because there's no solution that is going to prevent you from creating bugs and performance issues and all sorts of issues in your code base. So that's where I'm at. I am basically educating developers on just how to be better engineers. And of course, I'm using Sentry to demonstrate that, to validate my claims, to prove what I am talking about is actually the case.
Sure. With your, and I think this kind of opens it up too, because first of all, I said you work at Sentry, but you told me like you educate developers. So that made me think about, okay, the whole you, which is also your YouTube presence and like your teaching. So, okay, go into teaching. This is actually really interesting to me. So what do you think are important things an engineer should know, just in a general sense? Like if they're like with regards or context to web, because I feel like Sentry is a web company, right? And they're looking mainly at bugs that happen in production, right?
Yeah, not just web. Sentry has an SDK for every programming language and framework under this sun, which makes my job super hard. I get to work from PHP to Go to JavaScript to everything, even console gaming applications, Unity and stuff like that. So it's insane, but yeah, that's where I'm at. What is important for a web developer is, to me, is I can't say to learn to code, because that's never going to, you'll never achieve that. You'll never achieve that. There's always going to be something new. Yeah. But what you can achieve that is going to help you get back up when a bug or whatever throws you to the ground, to just get yourself back up and continue, is learning to debug. And I'm not just saying console logs, I'm saying there's a lot of different ways where you can debug specific issues. Because console log works as long as you're in the browser, right? Yes, but if you get out of the browser, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Even inside of the browser, how would you debug a performance issue with a console log? Technically you can, right? You can do console, what was that? Timer thingy? There was a timer. You can time things, but you can't time everything, especially the parts that happen before your page is even loaded, before you can write console log. So yeah, knowing how to debug and knowing different debugging techniques for local and also in production, because it's a totally different beast, debugging in production, that is going to help you get yourself back on your feet and continue learning and continue improving yourself. Debugging. Yeah.
Okay, this is very important. I feel like this actually, again, is like something that you're invited, if you really want to, do we want to have a meetup or something on debugging specifically. I feel like that is actually such a great topic, and I'm glad you're talking about it.
I'm definitely up for that.
Honestly, the thing I think that a lot of younger developers and even like mid developers struggle with is like production level code, or what I mean to say is bugs that are happening in production. First of all, it's embarrassing in some ways, because you spend all this time writing the code and then you think it's done, it's tested, unit tested, and it's pushed to staging in all these different places, and then it somehow like still bugs. I think like for people who are, again, juniors or mids and even maybe seniors, what is the right way to like debug this? What would you say in your mind? Like, how would you work backwards? What would you say? Let's keep it simple. Let's make it a web project. If you're seeing something on production, and you can even talk about the Sentry tools too that you use, if you use them, like I'm sure obviously you do, but what would you say like first is important before the Sentry and then the Sentry, if you will?
Yeah, when you're debugging in production, that means you're trying to figure out what happened when some user in this world, you have no idea who that is, entered your application, try to do something inside of your application, try to use your application, but then something broke. Or I'm not going to say something broke, because when things break, you hear them, you see them. There are things that break that you don't see them or don't hear them, but
Right.
they prevent the users from using the application. And I'm talking about spinners as well. So if you're trying to open a web page and it spins, if you never see it, you're not going to use it. But even if you see it like after 3 or 4 seconds, if every page takes 4 seconds to load, you're not going to use that application. You're going to give up. But debugging that into production means that you need to capture those measurements and send that somewhere so you can look at them later. Because these are not crashes. These do not produce errors. But even if they do, first of all, the errors, the stack trace is going to be minified, right? Modern tools, jQuery didn't do that because we just used to push jQuery stuff, and what we wrote was what got executed.
Sure.
Now it's not like that. Now it's all minified, obfuscated. And there's going to be a function, there's going to be an error in function f in variable a. You have no idea what that means because you didn't write that.
Yeah.
You didn't write that. So
yeah, it's been like minified, uglified too.
Exactly. That's a really common standard procedure nowadays. So there are multiple hurdles that you need to overcome in order to get enough debugging information that will help you try to reproduce that issue. First, just battle with stack traces. Those are minified, but they get minified, but you can unminify them if you have the source maps, right?
Yeah.
So at Sentry, we do parse and handle source maps for you automatically. So that's already done. But if you were to do it manually, I have no idea where you would begin because it's a hard problem.
Like you said, right? Like you're looking sometimes at these network calls to debug the spinners and figure out, okay, like how long does something take? And then you said you'll go and look at the minified source code, and then maybe it'll give you like function F. But if you see something that, is actually in the uglified code that is referencing something you remember, like a string that you remember, like a name of something.
Strings are not obfuscated,
Yeah, so then you can go, oh yeah, I remember seeing this in my code, and then you can like copy that and then paste that and maybe find it in your code where it's not completely uglified. Like you said, I think with the Sentry, right, if you have it locally and it handles the whole map for you of the source maps, then it's way less painless. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like looking at your own code at that moment.
By the way, I meant to say painful, less painful, not less painless.
Yeah, less painful.
One thing that I think that will make devs stand out is being able to jump into bugs and fix them, right? This comes from a book that I was reading and I reference it a lot, but it's called The Missing README. And in that book, like the first few chapters are about joining a team and joining your first job, and really, like, I think at some companies they don't really give you like a manual like on how to get started. You're just thrown into the fire from day one. Even
so, as a new guy or girl, as a new person on the team and a junior at that, on top of that, you're not gonna get the juicy features. You're gonna get the bugs. So be prepared to do the work that these senior engineers don't want to do it, the grunt work. And those are all bugs.
Yeah, and I would say sometimes that actually is like very difficult because even the senior engineers, like they know how to do it, but for them, it's like this takes away from something else they might want to do. And on top of that, they're like, oh, maybe I don't really want to do this bug today because then I'm on the line.
Exactly.
Now my senior expertise is on question. But again, I think like the best way to do well in the industry is just really, like I said, like we said that both of us started off with difficult problems, but we worked on it and tried to gain that expertise. When you jump into bugs and you start debugging, again, I would love to have you just do like a session on that. Would be really great. But you gain expertise over stuff that other people might fear, right? And you start learning like, oh, okay, this thing doesn't work. I've debugged and I've stack traced and I've mapped it back to these functions. That first day, like I will say, like the first few days of your job, like you probably are going to be in that space where nothing makes sense. But like the thing that and I always say this too, just to remember it for myself too, is that when you start showing that you can solve problems, right? That's kind of the heart of it. You mean more to the company. They're glad they hired you. They're glad that you're on the team and doing the work that no one else really wants to do. And if you help them with those pain points, that's really why they hired you in the first place, right? Like they were losing money or time or production stuff. They needed someone else to just come in and fix that. So a lot of times, like too, if you need a job, just find bugs on people's production websites and just see if you can like help somebody, you know, in one of these jobs. Say, hey, you've got a bug. I'm so and so. I probably could tell you like how to fix. Now, I wouldn't say try to fix everything and assume that you know it all, but that's where the communication aspect comes into, right? You want to be careful how you talk to people, and you might want to use ChatGPT to help you, or any AI tool. But because again, programmers and everybody have egos. I'll just throw that out there, but ultimately if you can help solve the bugs and you can show it in a kind way, I think you're going to be like doing really well. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts to add to that?
No, yeah, 100%. And I have a different aspect of why it's important to be able to investigate issues, whether that's your code base or your bugs or not your bugs, is learning. At least to me personally, the best way that I can learn about something is to break it. Try to do stuff, try to bend it in ways that it's not meant to be, and figure out where it breaks. That, first of all, that gives me like a good overview of the shape of the technology and where its borders are, right? So I know more about the technology, but in order to learn and get back to it, I need to investigate every time when I break it and why it breaks, because that's where the answer lies, right? So you end up knowing more about the technology when you're capable of debugging, when you're capable of investigating all of those issues that you cause, right? So that's talking about technology, but then also for a code base as well. So you learn a code base by breaking it. You can read it, but it's more memorable if you break it, because you're going to spend some significantly more time than reading it. Significantly more time than reading it to a certain place, and you're gonna know that ins and outs, everything about it. So debugging, investigating is super important even for you. But
I was gonna ask, what are some tools or places people can go if they're unfamiliar with debugging? Like, what would you suggest? I would totally appreciate that as well. Yeah. So,
I'm not sure if there's one single thing that I can reference. It's
like a book or something. Like, even okay, let's make it modern. So what would you ask AI? Like, what kind of prompts would you use specifically?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. First, I would start off by giving it all of the context that it needs. I'm going to explain my application. I'm going to explain all of the moving parts of my application. If I have a backend and front end, what are those technologies? Am I using some design patterns? Because things can break because you're using one design pattern, but not if you're not using that or a different pattern. I'm just basically going to explain everything as if ChatGPT is going to inherit my project while I go on to the next one, as if I'm transferring my project knowledge to a different person in the company.
Okay,
so that's how I begin. Yeah. And then I ask it relevant questions like, here's what happens with this in mind, with all of these facts in mind. Here's what happened. I tried to do this, and then I went here, and then I clicked here, and then I tried to submit a form or tried to download this, or whatever happened. I'm going to explain into it, I don't know, like it's a freaking policeman. No details, not hiding any details, just here's exactly what happened. What am I missing? What is happening? What is happening in the meantime that I cannot see? So that's how I would start. And it's slower, and it plays with your patience, especially if you're one of the younger generations. Patience is maybe not something that I'm not going to get into that, but sure. Patience is important in debugging.
That's actually another question too, right? So when you're Okay, so this is actually newer to me, and I think this is something that I actually, maybe this is the last question here, but like, how long do you spend with AI? Like, what do you feel would be good? Like, maybe like day to day, or do you spend hours? Like, when do you feel like, okay, like I learned and I can move on? Because like your mileage might vary, but let's say you want to learn debugging. Are you going to just sit there with it until you are reached master, or do you feel like I am going to just learn the basics for today and then carry on and then move on to the next time I can do this or whatever? Yeah.
Good. That's a really good question, and especially to me right now, because I'm getting more into Laravel and PHP. I've never done PHP in my life.
Sure.
Now I'm learning
You
it.
can ask me.
Yeah. So now I'm getting into that, and the questions that I ask ChatGPT is around just like talking to it. I'm not writing code with ChatGPT. I'm just talking to it as a person. If I were to ask you questions, that's how I communicate with ChatGPT. For example,
Right.
we have PHP, right? And we have Laravel. By default, what does like the PHP server look like? Is it stateful or is it stateless? Because if I build a service, do I need to worry about memory allocation or not? I don't even know PHP, right? I don't even know how PHP works. What about modules? If I export something from one file and I import it into another one, does that become a singleton like in JavaScript, or is that going to be recreated every time? That changes everything about how modules work, how you're going to write your code. So if it's not singleton, you're going to be careful not to introduce some side effects, and you'll be mindful of which variables you're using, and can they be changed from the outside, because there can be differences between the two. Those are like the questions that I ask it, and whether that I'm learning debugging or whether I'm learning a full language from scratch, like right now, that's all the questions that I'm asking. But I'm able to ask these questions because I am professional. I'm an expert in other languages, and I'm trying to map out how does PHP work and compare to JavaScript, and how, I don't know, Laravel compares to Node.js or JavaScript on the backend, whatever framework we're using. Those are like the questions. And I'm not writing code. I am just help me understand the concepts.
Yeah.
I don't want to see syntax. I don't want to say this is how you write a class in PHP. I mean, at the end of the day, Cursor is going to write that class for me. And when I see it 10 times in my code base, I'm even going to know how to write it by hand.
You want to know, so what I'm hearing is you want to know essentially what's the high level, why should I use this, what's happening like more on the computer side. And I think that's actually really great because, like, again, it ties back into what you're saying with debugging, right? Like the more you know what's happening, like at the 30,000 bird's eye view feel, you're going to be like more comfortable picking up and saying, okay, now that I understand how this thing works, let me just start writing the syntax. And that makes sense to me because this is what like I learned from this AI. Again, like in the past, it might have been you were reading documentation or asking people like at meetups. Like now it's so fast, you don't have to do those things. You can just sit with the AI and just play. Like you said, to me, like a vibe coding session feels like that. That's what that means to me, vibe coding. Like you're asking it like questions about things you don't really know. And then you're making like your vibe feel like, oh, okay, do I want to keep going with this? Like it doesn't give me a good vibe. So to me, that's like a good use of vibe coding as opposed to a bad use, which is what you were talking about, where people just make up code and not really know what's going on.
Trying to speed run the whole workflow. That's not good.
Yeah. And that'll actually get you like on the wrong path. If you're doing that, please stop. Don't vibe code and like, just not know what the code is doing, because it's akin to basically you're just doing what old devs in the past used to do, which is copy and paste StackOverflow answers.
And not reading it, not optimizing it for your use case. You're just wasting time. I'm going to say it. You've wasted all this time and now you don't know anything and your app is not working. And you have no idea where is the rabbit hole located for you to enter and fix it. Might as well delete it and start from the very beginning. So congratulations, you just lost a lot of time.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You just please don't do that. Try your best to actually learn about it. And
Yeah.
if you are in a position where you can't, because I get that some people are on the line or whatever and they need to have the code today or yesterday, I would say get out of that as fast as you can and get to a point where you can actually. And you should want it for yourself, right? If you're watching this video this far, or if you're still listening and you're this far in, obviously care about your performance and your future. So we both are telling you this is how you thrive in the industry. This is how you don't just survive, you actually thrive. You have to like spend time with the code. And help me out here. What would you recap for this session today? What would you say are like top tips or your takeaways from today's conversation?
Let's see. Yeah. AI is great. It's a tool though. It's not a replacement. Just like any tool, even a tool like a hammer, a regular hammer, there needs to be a person to use that hammer. The hammer by itself is useless. It's just catching on dust. So it's a tool. It's not going to replace you. It is going to replace you if you're not trying to be better.
I agree with that.
Even when you're using the like AI tools, the more you know about the technology and the project and just like the nature of the product that you're building, the application that you're building, the better the AI's output is going to be. So garbage in, garbage out.
100%.
Yeah, you have to, otherwise AI is useless. AI is useless if you don't give it the right context. The context needs to come from you. So you need to understand everything that's going on in order to explain it to the AI and then use it to save time. So I would say it's just that. You can use it to learn, of course, really important, although be careful with versioning and stuff like that. Sometimes it might feed you like false information or outdated information. But if you're using it in a coding capacity, to write code like Cursor and Windsurf and what are there, or like all the other tools.
Yeah, we need to hear your tools. At one point, we'll get that with you on another call. Keep going.
Yeah, but if you're using it in a coding capacity, make sure that you're the one that leads the conversation and you're the one that sets the requirements, right? You can use it. Here's what I'm going to say. From my standpoint, as a senior engineer, I would use AI as an intern, just like I would communicate with an intern at the company. If I want something built by the intern, I'm not just going to say, build this, and don't talk to me until you build it. That's not how you talk to people. That's not how you talk to anyone, including AI. So that's garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Right? I'm just going to get garbage. That's it.
Exactly.
But when I'm talking to an intern and I'm asking the intern to do stuff, I'm actually mentoring the intern on how to do it. Yeah, how to do it, what they should be mindful of, where should they be careful, if they need to build something, I don't know, explain the background, explain the design patterns, why are we using those design patterns, what is a controller, what is a service, everything that they would need to solve or fulfill my requirements as a senior engineer. I would just dump that into the AI, and that's when you get good results out of it. Otherwise, if you're not trying, it's not going to try as well. That's why I mentioned garbage in, garbage out.
This is such good advice. I'm really glad you said this, because I think like at the end you said something even the senior engineers can do listening to this. And I feel like that is mentoring, right? If you think of yourself as a senior engineer and you aren't mentoring, then I strongly would say that is the next step, right? If you want to be in that elevated position, you have to be able to work with people who are working with you who may not understand all the design patterns.
100%.
And for those people who are mid-level and the people who are coming into, and this is me, coming into a company where there was a senior engineer and there isn't a senior engineer any longer, then you really do need to sit and make sure that you ask all the questions, just as Lazar said, like to the AI, get the context, really understand what do these things mean, and make that AI your senior engineer if you can. Like, I think it can act both ways, like a dual purpose. But again, it's on you to make sure that the answers make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, then you're still going to be putting garbage out. So you want to get to a place where you can ask the right questions. And I think that's a critical skill, ultimately, like what you're saying here. That is the critical skill you want to strive for. That's the critical skill that's going to help you thrive in the industry very long term and make you valuable.
Yeah, and that's what makes us still relevant, even in the era of the AI. It's still here, still in your head. That's where the key is. Otherwise, yeah. With this AI, the one that we have today, it's not going to replace you.
Yeah, it's not going to replace you at all. It's just going to give you superpowers. But unless you say, hey, I want to be replaced. Yeah, I think if you work with AI and you just say, I'm gonna embrace this and see how much it can help me, I think you're in a good, solid position. And I think you have nothing to worry about ultimately for people who fear AI or whatever. And in the long run too, maybe we'll get to a point where AI does everything. At that point, you still have your brain, so you can figure out, oh, this thing is doing everything for me. I can go do something that hasn't been done yet and have this guy help me out. Even
in those cases, you know what? I feel like the last thing, even if AI is capable of writing the code and stuff like that, building real software involves not just writing code, but making decisions. And I don't think AI will ever be in a situation where it will make all of the decisions for us. It's still gonna be
we won't let it as humanity too.
Yeah. But there's still gonna be a person that needs to call the shots.
Yes, I agree with that.
That's the engineer. That's you.
Yeah.
100. I feel like that might be the future. Might look into this episode and say, oh my god, we were so wrong. But
yeah, that's the fun of making these videos too, is putting your opinion out there and then one day like looking in shame and regret. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, look, we work with what we got, right?
We work with what we
see. Exactly, yeah. You and I, we see what we see. We connect the dots. To us or to me, it looks like that. That's it. I might be missing something. We'll see in 10 years.
Okay, so it was really great talking to you today, Lazar.
Likewise.
Again, keep it contained. This is a fun conversation. It can go on and on. We may try that at some point where we just have very long conversations with people. But I don't think we're ready for that yet. Ultimately, though, like I really enjoyed this introduction, just getting to meet you, getting to know you today. I feel like I know you a lot better too, and I feel like maybe the audience definitely gets to know you a little bit better too. Thank you again for like your words of advice and just like thoughts on AI and thoughts on debugging, what makes a person competent in this industry. That's really the theme for HackBuddy right now, is just answering these questions like, how do you stay relevant? How do you move ahead if you're like stuck in a job? What kind of things can you be doing to like level up, right? That's really the long-term answer. So again, thank you for all that. And if you have anything to add at the end here, you can, or we can call it a coffee session. Again, like I'm having a soda here, so.
Nice.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can add, honestly. I think we've said enough. We've said a lot of things. We've recapped it at the end as well. That's the carry home, the recap.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll carry on in another episode. Maybe we can go into some deep dives in the future with a lot of the different tool chains we talked about. I think like the number one that might be interesting is the AI, just like showing more of that, like showing how to prompt engineer and yeah, there's a lot of different things. So we'll be in touch, okay?
Awesome, yeah, sounds good.
All right, great meeting you
Bye,
again,
Vijay.
and I'll talk to you later. Have a good night. Bye.